The workers' comp adjuster asked me one question. Who told you not to ask for help moving a 700-pound cart? I was sitting at my kitchen table with a heating pad against my back, an emergency room discharge packet beside my laptop, and my work phone open in my hand. So I did not argue. I did not explain my attitude. I sent her the group chat. The message from my general manager was still sitting there in black and white. Stop asking other departments for help. Move your own carts. That is what you are paid for. That message had been meant to make me look lazy. 2 weeks later, it made him look expensive. My name is Marissa. I was 31, and I worked back-of-house operations at a convention hotel outside Denver. Not the glamorous side of hospitality. I was not at the front desk smiling under chandeliers. I was in the service hallways, the laundry room, the storage cages, the banquet staging area, and the elevator banks guests were never supposed to see. If a ballroom needed linens before a breakfast event, I knew which cart had them. If housekeeping ran out of towels on the 12th floor, I knew which elevator would actually fit the delivery load. If a wedding planner wanted 80 chair covers moved from storage to banquet prep in 20 minutes, somebody called my radio. Our hotel looked smooth from the lobby because the back hallways were a moving machine. Carts, cages, racks, laundry bins, banquet supplies, cases of bottled water, crates of plates, stacks of folding tables, lost and found bins, and all the small ugly logistics that make a hotel function. Most people never think about that machine. They notice when it stops. The cart that changed everything was a gray laundry transport cart with a metal frame and heavy vinyl sides. Empty, it was already annoying. Full of wet towels, sheets, table linens, and banquet napkins after a weekend conference, it became a rolling wall. The label on the side said the maximum load was 760 pounds. We were not supposed to guess about that. It was printed on the manufacturer plate. It was also in our safety training, because the hotel had been sued before I ever worked there after a houseman tore his shoulder trying to move an overloaded cart alone. The rule was simple. Over 500 pounds, 2 employees. On ramps, 2 employees. Through the basement service doors, 2 employees. If the cart was wet, stuck, or crossing a threshold, 2 employees. The rule was not there because we were weak. It was there because physics does not care how many rooms are waiting. I had no problem with hard work. I had done hard work for years. I could push a loaded cart down a straight hallway. I could stage banquet supplies faster than most of the guys who liked to pretend they were doing me a favor. I could unload a supply truck, check a linen invoice, and get a broken rolling rack tagged before breakfast service noticed. But I respected weight. Weight lies to you until it moves. A cart that feels manageable on flat tile can become a different animal on a ramp. A wheel catches. A load shifts. A door threshold grabs the front edge. Then all that weight becomes momentum, and your body becomes the thing trying to stop it. That was why we helped each other. Housekeeping helped banquets. Banquets helped laundry. Engineering helped anyone crossing the loading dock ramp with a full cart. Nobody treated it like charity. It was just how we kept people from getting hurt. Our old operations manager, Gina, understood that. She was strict, but she was not reckless. If she saw somebody pushing a full linen cart alone toward the dock ramp, she would yell, "Pair up," before she asked why the cart was late. Then Gina took a job at a resort property in Arizona, and corporate sent us a new general manager named Cole. Cole arrived with shiny shoes, a tighter labor budget, and a habit of calling every basic safety practice culture drift. That was his phrase. Culture drift. If the front desk asked bell services for backup during a rush, culture drift. If housekeeping borrowed a banquet runner for 5 minutes, culture drift. If laundry asked engineering to help push a cart through the basement double doors, culture drift. To him, departments helping each other meant the staffing model was not clean. He wanted each team to own its own tasks without what he called cross-department leakage. The first time he said that, I thought he was talking about budgets. He was talking about bodies. At the Monday leadership huddle, he put up a labor report showing overtime by department. Back-of-house operations looked bad because we were the department everybody borrowed from and everybody blamed. If an event ran late, we stayed. If housekeeping got buried, we moved linen. If banquets needed last-minute resets, we ran. Cole pointed to our overtime line and said, "This is what happens when employees are allowed to wander into other departments instead of completing their own assigned work." I was standing in the back with my notebook. I said, "Some of that is safety assistance. Heavy cart moves are supposed to be two-person tasks." He smiled at me like I had handed him exactly the kind of sentence he liked correcting in public. "Safety is important," he said. "But so is accountability." That sounded reasonable if you did not know the building. So I tried again after the meeting, privately. I told him the linen carts were not normal office carts. I showed him the manufacturer plate. I showed him the safety training page. I explained the basement route from laundry to the service elevator had a slight ramp, a double-door threshold, and a blind turn near dry storage. Cole listened for about 12 seconds. Then he said, "Marissa, I appreciate your experience, but this hotel has to stop treating every inconvenience as an emergency." That was the first receipt. It was not enough by itself. It was verbal. People can pretend verbal warnings happen differently. So I sent a follow-up message. "Cole, just confirming after our conversation, for loaded laundry carts over 500 pounds, do you still want us using the two-person safety rule from training when crossing the dock ramp and service thresholds?" He did not answer for 3 hours. Then he replied, "Noted. Use judgment. But departments need to stop pulling each other off assigned tasks." That was still vague. Vague is where bad managers like to live. For the next week, things got tense. Cole started walking the service hallways with the executive housekeeper and the banquet captain, asking why people were out of their assigned zones. One afternoon, he saw Luis from engineering helping me push a full linen cart through the basement double doors. It was after a corporate luncheon, and the cart was packed with wet tablecloths, napkins, and towel overflow from guest floors. The wheels were squeaking. The left front caster had a shimmy we had reported twice. Luis had one hand on the side rail. That was all. Cole stopped us like we were stealing. "Why is engineering moving laundry?" he asked. I said, "Because this cart is over the two-person threshold." Cole looked at Luis. "Do you have open tickets?" Luis said, "Yes, but this took 30 seconds. Cole said, 30 seconds, 10 times a day, across 6 departments, is labor waste." Then he turned to me. "This is exactly what I mean. You need to complete your own work without recruiting half the hotel." I remember the phrase because recruiting half the hotel became a joke for about 1 hour. Then it stopped being funny. That evening, Cole posted in the operations group chat. It included housekeeping supervisors, banquet leads, laundry, engineering, front desk managers, and a few assistant managers who never read anything until it was too late. Effective immediately, departments are not to request help from other departments for routine assigned tasks. Laundry moves laundry. Banquets move banquet equipment. Engineering handles engineering tickets. Stop asking other teams to help move carts, racks, or supplies unless a manager approves it first. We need accountability. I read it twice. Then I typed one question. Does this apply to loaded linen carts over 500 pounds and dock ramp moves covered in the safety training? The chat went quiet. People saw it. I could see the little read icons. Cole answered 6 minutes later. Yes. Stop creating exceptions. Move your own carts. That is what you are paid for. I took a screenshot. Then I took another screenshot with the time visible. Then I backed up the conversation to my personal incident notes, because I had learned a long time ago that people who say accountability a lot usually mean yours, not theirs. I did not plan to get hurt. I need that part clear. This was not a movie where I smiled and walked toward danger so the villain would fall into a trap. I had rent. I had a car payment. I had a lower back that I preferred in working order. I did not want workers' comp. I did not want physical therapy. I did not want to spend 2 weeks measuring my life by whether I could put on socks without making a noise. I wanted my manager to read the safety rule and stop being stupid. But people like Cole do not feel the edge of a rule when someone warns them. They feel it when the rule leaves a mark in a file. The accident happened on a Thursday after a 3-day medical sales conference. The kind of conference where people use 30 towels a room, spill coffee on every linen surface, and somehow create enough dirty napkins to cover a parking lot. By 2 in the afternoon, laundry was backed up. Housekeeping was calling for fresh towels. Banquets needed table linens for an evening awards dinner. The executive housekeeper wanted the service elevator cleared because room attendants were waiting. I had a full gray cart and laundry, packed higher than I liked. Wet linens on the bottom, dry overflow on top, plastic bags tied to the side, and one front caster doing that little wobble that tells you the cart is thinking about betraying you. Normally I would have called Luis or one of the banquet guys. I did not. I opened the group chat and reread Cole's message. Stop asking other teams to help move carts, racks, or supplies unless a manager approves it first. So I radioed my supervisor, Dana. Can you approve engineering assistance for a heavy cart move from laundry to the service elevator? Dana sounded tired. Cole told us no cross-department help unless he approves it. Can you ask him? There was a pause. Then Dana said, he is in a revenue call. He said earlier laundry needs to handle laundry. That was not enough for me. So I sent Cole a direct message. Loaded linen cart needs to cross dock ramp and basement double doors. Estimated over 500 pounds. Requesting approval for second person under safety training. He answered almost immediately. No. We are not stopping engineering tickets for laundry work. Move it yourself or wait until your department has coverage. That was the second receipt. Move it yourself. I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Then I did the least dramatic thing in the world. I took another screenshot. I checked that the cart path was clear. I put both hands on the rail. And I moved the cart. The first hallway was fine. Slow, but fine. I kept the cart close to the wall, took the wide turn by dry storage, and avoided the cracked tile near the ice machine. I was angry, but I was not careless. The problem was the basement double doors. One door had a weak closer that always tried to swing back before the cart cleared. Usually the second person held it. That day, I propped it with my hip and pushed forward. The front wheels hit the metal threshold. The bad caster turned sideways. The cart stopped. The weight behind it did not. I felt the jolt through my arms first, then my lower back, then down my right leg. It was not a dramatic movie scream. It was a sharp, ugly sound that came out of me before I could stop it. The cart shifted. I grabbed the side rail because I thought it was going to tip. That was the wrong instinct, but bodies do not hold a committee meeting when 700 pounds moves wrong. Luis heard the noise from the engineering cage and came running. Dana came from laundry. Somebody from banquets grabbed the door. They got the cart stable. I was on one knee, holding the rail, trying to decide whether standing up was possible. Dana kept saying, "Do not move. Do not move." I said, "Take a picture of the cart." She looked at me like I was insane. I said, "Please." The weight label. The door. The threshold. She took the pictures. Then she called the assistant manager on duty, because our policy required an incident report for any injury on property. That policy mattered. Cole had spent 2 weeks treating safety rules like suggestions employees used to avoid work. But the moment someone got hurt, those rules became forms. Forms have boxes. Boxes ask questions. Questions do not care whether a manager is embarrassed. The assistant manager, Priya, came down with the incident packet and the first aid kit. She asked what happened. I said, I was moving the loaded linen cart alone through the basement doors because my request for a second person was denied. She stopped writing. Denied by who? Cole. She looked at Dana. Dana looked at the floor. Priya said, was that verbal? I said, no. Then I showed her the message. That was the first time I saw someone else read it and understand exactly what it was. Her face did not change much. Hospitality managers learn how to keep their faces still. But her pen stopped moving. She took a picture of my phone with the company incident tablet. Then she said, very carefully, I am going to document that you reported a written instruction not to request assistance. That sentence was better than sympathy. Sympathy does not pay medical bills. Documentation sometimes does. The hotel sent me to an occupational clinic first. The clinic sent me to the ER because I had pain running down my leg and numbness in my foot. The ER doctor said it looked like a lower back strain with possible nerve irritation, gave me medication, and wrote work restrictions. No lifting over 10 pounds. No pushing or pulling carts. No bending or twisting. Follow-up before returning to full duty. For a back-of-house hotel employee, that meant I was basically decorative. Cole called me that evening. I did not answer. He texted instead. Need your incident statement before end of day. Make sure you include that you chose to move the cart without waiting for coverage. I read that message in the ER parking lot. Then I laughed once, which hurt. He was already trying to write the story around the injury. That was fine. He was writing it in the same place he had written the first one. I replied, I will complete the incident statement after medical evaluation. Please preserve all group chat and direct message records related to the cart move and staffing instruction. He did not answer. Dana texted me privately 10 minutes later. What did you say to him? He is asking everyone not to discuss the cart in chat. I told her not to delete anything. The next morning, HR called. Our HR manager, Malcolm, had the careful voice of a man who had opened a file and found a snake inside it. He asked me to walk through the accident from the beginning. I did. He asked whether I had been trained on heavy cart movement. I said yes. He asked whether the training recommended 2 people for that type of move. I said yes. He asked whether I requested a second person. I said yes. He asked whether the request was denied. I said yes. Then he asked the question that told me HR had not yet seen everything. Was that denial in writing? I said, yes. There was a pause. I sent him the screenshots. Not just Cole's group chat message. The direct message too. Loaded linen cart needs to cross dock ramp and basement double doors. Estimated over 500 pounds. Requesting approval for second person under safety training. No. We are not stopping engineering tickets for laundry work. Move it yourself or wait until your department has coverage. Malcolm said, I am going to need the original messages exported from the company phone. I said, of course. That is the beauty of a clean receipt. You do not have to perform outrage. You just provide the file. Workers' Comp contacted me the following Monday. The adjuster was named Renee. She was direct, not rude, which I appreciated. She asked about the injury, the medical visit, my restrictions, my normal job duties, and the cart. Then she asked how many people usually moved that type of cart. I said, 2. She asked why I moved it alone. I said, because my general manager instructed us not to ask other departments for help moving carts without manager approval, and then denied my request for help on that cart. She said, do you have that instruction? I said, yes. That was when she asked the question from the beginning of this story. Who told you not to ask for help moving a 700-pound cart? I sent her the messages. She read them while I sat at my kitchen table, listening to the line stay quiet. Then she said, please do not delete these. I said, I will not. She said, and do not communicate with your manager about the accident without HR copied. That was the moment I knew the injury file had changed shape. Before that call, the hotel could still pretend this was a normal workplace injury. Unfortunate, maybe preventable, but normal. A heavy cart, a bad caster, an employee strained her back. These things happen in hotels. After that call, it was not just an injury. It was a manager overriding a written safety practice, rejecting a specific request for assistance, and creating a record of it before the injury happened. The system had a trail now. Cole spent the next few days trying to sweep dirt off a wet floor. First, he told Dana that I had misunderstood his message. Dana asked him, which part? He said he meant people should not ask for casual help, not safety help. Dana said, she asked you if it applied to the safety training. That conversation did not stay private because Dana wrote a statement for HR. She included the part where he said I misunderstood him. Then Cole tried to say I should have waited until someone from laundry was available. That sounded better until HR checked the schedule and saw he had cut laundry coverage during afternoon turnover to reduce labor hours. Then he tried to say the cart might not have been over 500 pounds. That sounded better until Priya uploaded the photo of the manufacturer plate, the load sheet from laundry, and the pictures Dana took right after the accident. Nobody could prove the exact pound count without weighing the cart, but everybody could prove the cart was the type covered by the heavy move rule, and everybody could prove I had described it as over 500 pounds before moving it. That mattered. The warning existed before the injury. Not after. Before. Managers love hindsight when it protects them. They say nobody could have predicted this. Nobody raised a concern. Nobody told me this was risky. Cole did not get to say that. I had told him. In writing. Using the words loaded cart, over 500 pounds, dock ramp, basement double doors, and safety training. He had answered, move it yourself. There are not many places to hide inside 3 words. The HR meeting happened 9 days after the accident. I attended by video because I still could not sit comfortably in a conference chair for long. Malcolm from HR was there. Priya was there. Dana was there. Cole was there. A regional operations director named Elise joined from corporate. Elise started by saying this was a fact-finding meeting. That is corporate language for everybody stop improvising because legal may read this later. She asked me to explain my job duties. I did. She asked about the normal 2-person cart practice. I explained that too. Cole interrupted and said, to be clear, there is no written policy that says every cart requires 2 people. I said nothing. Malcolm said, the training document says loaded carts above 500 pounds or crossing ramps and thresholds require assistance. Cole said, training guidance is different from policy. Elise said, Cole, please let Malcolm finish. That was the first small crack. Malcolm shared his screen. He pulled up the safety training page. It had the exact section I had mentioned. Heavy transport carts. 2-person movement. Ramps. Thresholds. Defective wheels. Report equipment issues before use when possible. Then he pulled up Cole's group chat message. Stop asking other teams to help move carts, racks, or supplies unless a manager approves it first. Then my question. Does this apply to loaded linen carts over 500 pounds and dock ramp moves covered in the safety training? Then Cole's answer. Yes. Stop creating exceptions. Move your own carts. That is what you are paid for. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. It was not dramatic. No one gasped. No one slammed a folder on the table. The room just became very practical. Elise asked Cole, what did you intend this to mean? Cole said, I intended employees to stop using safety language to avoid accountability. That answer may have sounded strong in his head. In the meeting, it landed like a plate dropped on tile. Elise said, so you believed the safety language was being used improperly? Cole said, in some cases, yes. Malcolm asked, did you inspect this cart before denying the request? Cole said no. Malcolm asked, did you assign another laundry employee to assist? Cole said no. Malcolm asked, did you review the safety training before telling her to move it herself? Cole said, I was managing labor allocation. That was not an answer. Everyone knew it. Then workers' comp sent a preliminary note to HR while we were still in the meeting. I know because Malcolm's expression changed when the email notification appeared. He did not read it out loud, but he asked to pause for 5 minutes. When they came back, Elise was colder. She said, effective immediately, heavy cart movement returns to the documented 2-person standard. No manager may deny safety assistance for loaded transport equipment without inspecting the task and documenting the alternative plan. Cole said, that will affect labor hours. Elise said, the injury already affected labor hours. That was the line people repeated for weeks. Not publicly. Hotels are rumor machines, but careful ones. Still, it traveled. The injury already affected labor hours. After that, things moved fast. The hotel filed the workers' comp claim. My medical bills were covered. I received wage replacement while I was out. My return to work restrictions were sent to HR, and because I could not push, pull, lift, bend, or twist, I was assigned temporary desk work auditing linen loss logs and equipment repair tickets. That part was almost funny. For 2 weeks, I sat in an office and reviewed the paperwork Cole hated. I found both reports we had submitted about the bad caster on the gray cart. One was mine. One was Luis's. Both had been closed as monitor condition because engineering was short-staffed and the cart still rolled. I did not even have to do anything dramatic with that. I forwarded the ticket numbers to Malcolm because he had asked for any equipment history related to the accident. That added another branch to the file. The cart had a known wheel issue. The heavy move had a safety rule. The employee requested help. The manager denied help. The employee got hurt at the exact threshold she warned about. If you are going to be careless, do not make the timeline that clean. Cole stopped texting me directly. He had to go through HR for anything related to my schedule. His group chat messages became painfully polite. He started writing things like, "Please ensure all safety standards are followed," which made everyone in operations stare at their phones and smile. 2 weeks after the accident, corporate sent a new safety bulletin to all hotel managers in the region. It did not name me. It did not name Cole. It said recent incidents had shown the need to clarify transport equipment rules. Clarify is another corporate word. It means someone made the old rule expensive enough to read. The bulletin said loaded laundry carts, banquet racks, housekeeping supply cages, and equipment carts above the listed threshold required two-person movement across ramps, door thresholds, dock plates, or service elevator entries. It said managers could not deny safety assistance based on labor allocation alone. It said employees would not be disciplined for pausing a task to request assistance under the heavy move standard. That last sentence was mine. Not officially. But I knew. Because the old training said 2 people. The new bulletin said employees would not be disciplined. That sentence existed because Cole had tried to turn a safety rule into a discipline issue. Corporate also required managers to complete an incident response refresher. Cole had to sit in a training room with every department head and listen to a safety consultant explain that written instructions override later verbal interpretations when investigating workplace injuries. Dana told me later that he barely looked up from the table. I did not feel bad for him. He still had his back. I was doing physical therapy twice a week and sleeping with a pillow under my knees because turning over hurt. The final meeting happened after I was cleared for modified duty but before I returned to full lifting. Elise came to the property in person. She met with operations leads and announced that heavy movement approvals would no longer sit with Cole alone. Department supervisors could authorize cross-department safety assistance without GM approval, and engineering had to inspect any cart with a repeated wheel complaint within 24 hours. Cole was still technically the general manager, but a chunk of his control had been cut out and handed to people who understood the building. That was the real consequence. Not a dramatic firing. Not a hallway apology. The company took away the part of his authority he had misused. He could still talk about labor numbers. He could still attend revenue calls. He could still polish slides. But he could not tell someone to move a dangerous load alone and call it accountability. Not without creating a record that would go above him before the cart moved. There was one more piece that people outside hotels might not understand. Modified duty is not free. When an employee is hurt but not cleared for normal work, the company has to find work inside the medical restrictions or keep paying through the claim. My restriction sheet was specific enough to be annoying. No pushing. No pulling. No lifting over 10 pounds. No repeated bending. No extended standing without breaks. That eliminated almost every useful thing I normally did. So for several shifts, Cole had to schedule someone else to cover my physical work while I sat in the back office and checked logs. He had to approve the hours. He had to explain the coverage gap on the same labor report he had used to accuse us of wasting time. That was the number corporate cared about. Not because they were heartless. Because numbers travel upward faster than pain. The injury claim had a file number. The modified duty hours had a payroll code. The replacement coverage had overtime attached to it. The safety consultant had an invoice. The damaged cart had a repair ticket. Every piece of the decision he thought would save labor created a new line item that someone above him could read. That is what made the outcome stick. If the only consequence had been me being angry, Cole could have survived that. Managers like him survive angry employees all the time. They call it resistance. They call it drama. They call it not being a team player. He could not do that with a claim number. He could not call an ER restriction a personality issue. He could not call a repair ticket emotional. He could not call his own text message a rumor. At the next department huddle, he tried to sound like the policy update had been his idea. He stood near the time clock and said, "We are going to be more intentional about safe movement procedures." Nobody said anything. Then Luis raised his hand and asked, "So if laundry calls me for a heavy cart, do I answer the call or wait for you to approve it?" Cole's jaw moved once. Dana answered before he could. "You answer," she said. "I will document it." That was the new power structure in one sentence. "You answer. I will document it." Cole looked at Elise, who was standing by the office door. Elise nodded. And that was that. The rule he tried to shrink came back larger, with witnesses. On my first day back, the gray cart had a new caster. There was also a laminated sign above the laundry exit. Loaded carts over 500 pounds require assistance. Do not cross ramp or threshold alone. Contact supervisor for support. Someone had underlined "do not" in black marker. I did not ask who. Cole saw me reading it. For 1 second, I thought he might say something. Maybe some fake apology. Maybe some careful sentence about lessons and communication. He did not. He walked past me into the service hallway, carrying his coffee, and kept his eyes on the floor. That was fine. I did not need an apology from him. I had the group chat. I had the ER record. I had the workers' comp claim. I had the policy bulletin. And every time someone asked for help moving a heavy cart after that, they got it. Cole wrote the order. The cart delivered the consequence. That was one hotel where a safety rule stopped being a poster and became a file. The next story came from another woman, a smaller workplace, and a boss who thought a health policy was a threat he could point at employees whenever he wanted. Her boss gave the staff 2 choices in writing. If you have symptoms, bring a negative test or stay home for 10 days. He wrote it during COVID, when everyone was tired, short-staffed, and one bad week could break the schedule. The workplace was a small riding stable that also ran lessons and summer camps. She cleaned stalls, fed horses, checked water buckets, moved hay, and helped with turnout. It was physical work. It was also the kind of place where one missing worker meant the rest of the day became a math problem with boots. The owner liked sounding strict. He sent long texts about safety, responsibility, and protecting the business. What he really wanted was control. If someone called in sick, he treated it like betrayal. If someone asked whether they should stay home with symptoms, he acted like they were trying to get a vacation. So he made a policy in the staff group chat. Any symptom means you either send a negative test before shift or isolate for 10 days. No exceptions. I am not risking the business because people want special treatment. The woman reading that message had a headache and a sore throat the next morning. She lived in a rural area. The nearest rapid test was not available until the afternoon. Her shift started at 6. So she followed the policy. She texted, "I have symptoms and cannot get a negative test before shift. Per your message, I will isolate for 10 days. The owner called her in less than 2 minutes. She did not answer. She texted back, "Please keep this in writing." He replied, "I need you here. Just wear a mask and do the outside chores." She sent a screenshot of his own message. Any symptom means negative test before shift or isolate for 10 days. No exceptions. Then she wrote, "I am choosing the policy option you provided." That was when the policy stopped being a threat and became an operational plan. The morning shift fell apart. Horses still needed feed. Water still needed checking. Stalls still needed cleaning. A delivery truck arrived with hay and nobody available to stack it. 2 lessons had to be cancelled because the owner was in the barn trying to do the work he usually described as simple. By 8:30, he had pulled his wife into the barn office to call part-time staff. By 9, he was texting former weekend helpers who had not worked there in months. By 10, parents were asking why the beginner lesson had been cancelled after they had already driven across town with kids in riding boots. He texted the staff chat, "Everyone needs to be flexible today." She did not answer. Another employee did. "Are symptoms still negative, test or 10 days?" The owner wrote, "Use common sense." That was his mistake. Common sense was not the rule he had written. No exceptions was the rule he had written. So the second employee replied, "Just confirming because yesterday you said no exceptions." The group chat went quiet in the same way mine had. Policies feel powerful when only the boss is pointing at them. They feel different when employees start reading them back. By noon, he texted her again. "This is not what I meant." She replied, "I am following the written policy." He tried to say she was abandoning the team. She replied with the same sentence. "I am following the written policy." On day 4, he offered to let her return if she promised to be reasonable. She asked him to define that in writing. He did not. On day 6, he changed the posted rule on the barn office wall. The new version said employees with symptoms should contact management for instructions based on staffing needs, symptom level, and current public health guidance. That sounded more flexible. It also admitted the first version had been careless. The staff noticed. The next time he tried to bark, "Read the policy," someone said, "Which one?" That was not rebellion. That was record keeping. After that, the meaning of the rule changed. Suddenly, no exceptions had exceptions. Suddenly, the business could handle judgment. But the staff had already seen the useful part. When a boss writes a rule to scare employees, employees can read it too. She came back after 10 days with the original text still saved. He never apologized. He did not have to. The schedule had already explained it for him. Some managers think safety language is just a tool for getting obedience. They forget tools have edges. And written rules do not care who is holding them first.